This idea that there was no responsibility taken. I kind of want to double down on that in terms of these men that are giving the response. I had no idea she was this unhappy. She just blindsided me.
To your point earlier, what you said, like, you're married to someone and you're not recognizing, like if somebody is this unhappy and you are not recognizing, but let me just say, women, we are really good at, let me put my head down, let me do what I got to do, let me handle everything.
Yep.
So, you're silently grieving inside as a woman who is literally, considering breaking up her family, right? So you have so much grief and guilt and pain inside, but you still have to keep everything running. So you still have to keep the relationship running. You still have to keep the family running, but you're broken. This is why everybody kind of thinks the marriage is fine. Even her husband, we gaslight ourselves into thinking, oh, it's really not this bad. Oh, this is just what marriage is. But then some women get to the point and they're like, nah, fuck that. Welcome to Drinks with the Girls, conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Drinks with the Girls. This episode hits a little bit close for me, but we're going to walk through it.
See what you did there?
No pun intended. Today, we're going to talk about this cultural phenomenon called the walk-away wives. And there was a recent article in The Independent that we'll dive into about this. And it's basically women, our generation, deciding to leave their marriages. But before we get into that, today I am drinking an Aperol Spritz in honor of my son and daughter-in-law. Their 3-year wedding anniversary is on Wednesday, and they got married in Italy. And so we drank lots of Aperol Spritzes. So cheers.
And they had a baby to celebrate.
And they had a baby on the 19th. I'm officially a granny. Cheers to that. What are you drinking, babe?
Well, it's evolved. It's one of those kind of evenings. So I started out with a Topo Chico tropical mango. And then I saw some of my homemade simple syrup, strawberry syrup that I just canned. I've been doing that. I actually tried Kate's from our fashion episode, her pear martini with my homemade canned pears. That was really freaking good, I gotta say. And so I was like, I'll put some strawberry syrup on it. So I'm like, put the strawberry syrup in, then the ice. I'm like, this is kind of good, but it needs a little sweet. And then Karen and I were talking business, and I exploded the drink all over my keyboard. So just word to the wise, yes, computer covers save lives. And so by that time, it was almost nothing. So then I threw in an Olipop cream soda. So I don't even know what it is at this point. It's just a concoction. So there you go. Cheers.
That's a nice recovery. I didn't think that was going to go that smoothly. When I heard it go all over I could hear it go bubbling over the keyboard. I was like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, 1 minute. Yeah. No, those computer covers save lives. Because I spill things. Okay. Anyways, getting back to walking away.
Getting back to this whole walk away wives conversation. And it's kind of blowing up right now. Like I don't know, it's definitely my algorithm, but I'm seeing a lot of conversations about women in, Gen X women specifically, but, women in midlife who are choosing divorce. And, that was my story. So I can relate with a lot of this, but I think it's something that it's good for us to talk about. The thing that always cracks me up is and I see this when I read the articles as well. This didn't just happen to me, but I read the articles and it's like the men are always shocked. And the men always say, "Oh, this just came out of nowhere. And she just left, out of I had no idea it was coming. I was blindsided." And I'm just going to lovingly call bullshit because, speaking from my experience, and of course, sure, are there women that maybe wake up one day and think, "I'm going to blow my life up," and do it? Sure. That is a small
Yeah.
percentage. I
I was
don't know
just
the
going to say,
stats,
I bet.
but that is a small percentage because, like me, I was thinking about divorce for probably decades. No, not decades, years before it was actually a conversation because it was too scary to think about. So I would just push it down and push it down. So I just want to be clear before we even start, women do not leave suddenly out of the blue. They leave after years of trying to explain what they need, years of asking for connection, years of making themselves small, carrying the emotional weight of the relationship and the family, right? And then they ask themselves, well, maybe I'm being too much. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Again, bullshit.
And I want to clarify something because we're specifically talking about the stat with heterosexual marriages. We are not speaking about a stat that involves marriages between two men or two women, not because we have an issue with it, but that's just not this slice of statistic that we're talking about. So I want to make that clear that we're not excluding that for some kind of political reason. We're just zeroing in on this particular stat. And you shared this stat with me before we started, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Did you get that stat from the Independent article? Is that where you got the one about the percentages?
No, I think it was I think it might have been a Time article. I have to double check my sources,
The
but
sources. So it says research shows, I still can't, women initiate 65 to 70% of divorces in heterosexual marriages. Not Gen X, not like the gray divorce, like period, end of story. And there's so much to unpack. I mean, I'm shocked. I mean, I am and I'm not. Like, I'm shocked that it's that high, but I'm not shocked when I'm like, yeah, I can see most women getting the point where they're freaking done.
makes
If that
sense.
makes sense.
That tracks.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not divorced, but we were inches away. We were physically separated and I was done. Like I was out.
I think the piece that nobody really knows about unless you've experienced it, and of course, like it's like a lot of things in life, you're not really thinking about it unless you've gone through it. But women, if they're like me, right, you don't want to get divorced. Like that is not your end goal, especially if you have children. And so
Well, no
you
one
are
wants to get
trying.
divorced. Like nobody
No,
goes into a marriage saying, hope
no,
this ends in divorce. Like,
exactly, nobody. And so I think it makes me chuckle with a snide chuckle because women who are literally trying to keep their families together and literally trying to make everything work and trying to make their needs known, and they just aren't being seen. And so you can only go through so many years of not feeling like you're seen or heard, right? And then you have menopause joins the conversation. And you really, with your diminishing estrogen, you don't really care as much. You're not trying to keep everybody comfortable as much. And you really come to this reckoning of, I don't have to stay in this marriage. I'm done. And like I said, I was done in my mind way before we actually had the conversation.
yeah. Yeah. And I do think that social class has something to do with it as well,
Oh,
because for women that are in poverty, like it's a whole different story, you know?
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
women that are in abusive relationships or marriages, I feel like that's kind of a whole different topic. So I feel like we need to just establish the fact that we're talking about a woman who's in a marriage that she doesn't necessarily have to stay in financially, I guess would be the best word. Not to say that it doesn't affect you, because I'll tell you what, when I got separated, I was like, how in the hell are we going to do this? And you've talked about that too. But I'm not even talking about like, oh, it's going to be tough. I'm talking like below the poverty line, they don't work. Like At any rate,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying.
No, absolutely. And yes, it is a privilege. Like I don't want to say I had the privilege to even consider divorce, but yes, am I as financially well off as I was when I was married? No. But,
Yep.
I think you get to this point and if you have the option, if you have financial means, I had to have an education and I had a business, I had options. And I think also this is one of the reasons that, people say, oh, well, marriages just aren't what they used to be, like what our grandmothers went through. Our grandmothers and our grandfathers were just so much more committed. And no, our fucking grandmothers were stuck. They were trapped because they literally, couldn't even get a credit card until what, 1974?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think there are so many different things, different factors that are at play. But yeah, definitely not all women have the ability to even ask themselves, am I happy?
Yeah.
Because they're just in survival mode. And unfortunately, that isn't available to all women.
And I do think, and I know this happened after your divorce, but they make the point in this article that the pandemic was like a huge, just like a powder keg exploded. Because suddenly you're living 24/7 with this person in a, 1-bedroom condo in New York or whatever, right? And you're just like, I don't really want to spend that much time with this person, So I can see how that would be an accelerator. Let's put it that way.
I just flashed back to, when my ex-husband and I we knew we were going to be getting a divorce, but yeah, we were still in the home together. And just that level of uncomfortability and tension. And I've had friends actually who have gone through a divorce and for whatever reasons, financially mostly, they had to stay together in the home. And yeah, thankfully, the pandemic didn't affect me that way because I was already divorced at that time, which is weird to say because I feel like those years all just kind of run together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was divorced in 20, I almost said 19, in 1917, 2017.
Yeah. And obviously our situations are different. I'm married. Karen isn't. Karen has a long-term partner. I have a husband who's on his second marriage. I always tell him he'll be very happy with his third wife, and he agrees. At any rate, I do think that, at least in my situation, like I said, I was ready to walk away. But without hijacking the conversation, my husband did a lot of work and made a lot of changes. And I think that speaks to the fact that I'm going to generalize and I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it kind of speaks to the whole I had no idea thing. To me, that's someone that hasn't paid attention to their partner enough to know that they are desperately unhappy. Because
yes.
If you're to the point, and again, I know it's not every situation, but if you're to the point where your wife is considering leaving the marriage, like you said, 9 times out of 10, this has not come out of the blue. I remember in your situation, you were trying to do counseling and all this stuff. And he was like, no. And the most responsive was, oh, this is because you're going into menopause, which still just.
To his credit, when I first started really feeling these feelings and thinking, oh shit, this is not going to go well unless I get some help. So I took him, I was seeing a therapist and then we brought him in and yeah. So after that one session, we were leaving and he just said, don't ever make me do that again. So to me, obviously that was like, okay, well, I got to figure this shit out on my own. And I did lots of different things. I got really into, this is so funny, but so on the PTA, when my kids were in middle school, I had whatever my title was, I can't remember on the board, but I was in charge of hosting the sex education expert that would come to the middle school.
Why am I surprised? Oh my God,
and
that's so
put
awesome.
On. Yes.
So they literally had a job in the PTA to do this one thing.
Yep. It was great. It was perfect for me.
Okay, wait, hold up. I have to ask a question. shouldn't that be the job of the certified health educators in the school?
I mean,
Asking
sure.
for a
Yep.
friend.
So this program and this educator who would come in, they had it every year. They had it, so it
Yeah.
wasn't like, oh, I have to find this expert and I have to.
Okay.
All I had to do was
like,
coordinate.
wait, what?
No,
Okay. All right.
no.
Okay.
I just had to coordinate dates. I had to present it to everybody, let them know when it was happening. I had to clear the room, all that. So it
Okay.
was not like I was like involved in curriculum setting or any of that stuff.
I was like, damn, that doesn't happen in the PTAs in my town.
She ended up being this really cool chick, and I wish I could remember the name of the business, but her side hustle was sex toy parties.
I love it.
So I just dove. I'm bringing it back around, people. Stick with me. I just dove into that piece of it. It's like, okay, well, maybe, I can't take him to therapies, but maybe if I like just get really crazy in the bedroom, that's
it. You're a genius.
That'll help. Yeah, that didn't help.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Corricello-McDowell, your midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families. And I'd love to help you do the same. And I'm beyond excited to tell you about my membership for maxed out mamas just like me, the Empowered Parent Collective. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together.
I'm trying to remember what your point was that I was trying to make a point about. But the therapy. No, the therapy.
Yes, the therapy.
So by the time we got into couples counseling, like when it was the end, that's when he brought in the literature about menopause and, telling the therapist, well, she's only doing this because she's going through perimenopause and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, perimenopause was definitely a reason that I was like speaking my truth 158%, which was new for him to hear. But it wasn't the reason that I wanted a divorce.
I mean, that says volumes to me. And I know we're not like spending an entire episode analyzing your marriage, but just this idea that there was no responsibility taken. And I kind of want to double down on that in terms of these men that are giving the response. I had no idea, right? I had no idea she was this unhappy. She just blindsided me one day. And it's like, what I don't understand and what I've learned from my own marriage is that a marriage is a living, breathing thing. My husband and I do not have the same relationship that we had when we first got married. It's different in a lot of ways. And you go through different pieces. And I think that if you don't flex with that and you're not able to, like, we're not the same people, if you're not able to change and grow with that, I can totally see how this happens. And we're together because of my husband. Period. End of story. And, he got sober. There's all sorts of stuff that he did that, I mean, it wasn't me standing there like cracking the whip. He knew that he had to make some big time changes. And, at the end of it, it was me saying, I'm out. Like, I'm done. So,
I think there's a huge part of self exploration and self discovery. And like you said, like owning, taking responsibility from some patterns maybe you have in the relationship that really aren't working. And, I mean, my ex-husband is a great human. He is a great dad. He's a good person. We respected each other. But self-exploration and self-growth was not high on his priority list. And of course, mine obviously, because I do what I do, that was a value of mine. So that was really difficult because I felt like I was outgrowing him and he wasn't.
Yep.
But to your point earlier, what you said, like, you're married to someone and you're not recognized. Like, if somebody is this unhappy and you are not recognizing, but let me just say, women, we are really good at nose to the grindstone.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put my head down. Let me do what I got to do. Let me handle everything.
Yep.
So, you're silently grieving inside as a woman who is literally, considering breaking up her family, right? So you have so much grief and guilt and pain inside, but you keep it inside, but you still have to keep everything running. So you still have to keep the relationship running. You still have to keep the family running. So you're grocery shopping, you're still buying the birthday presents, you're still planning the holidays, but inside you're broken, right? And so this is why everybody kind of thinks the marriage is fine, even her husband, even my husband, because I think we gaslight ourselves into thinking, oh, it's really not this bad. Oh, this is just what marriage is. This is how life is. But then some women get to the point and they're like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah, I guess I just really have a hard time Monday morning quarterbacking a marriage where even in hindsight, the other partner can't look back and say, well, now that I think about it, there were signs. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a very rare case where one minute you're making meatloaf and the next minute you're done. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of steps in between there,
But I mean, that's literally the walkaway wives.
Wow.
Like
That's
that is, and
okay.
and of
All
course,
right.
everybody's different. All situations
Yeah.
are different. And there's all different levels of, well, how much counseling did you do? And what did you say? And how many conversations did you
Yeah.
have? And did you go on a retreat thing to help, a weekend away to help your, whatever. But yeah, it is literally like that because these women, and I'm one of them, you're in your brain, you're done. You just are at that point and you're like, I can't do this anymore.
And I do think as women, we shoot ourselves in the foot every single freaking day because
Yeah.
we pick up the slack. We give away the last piece of cake, right? We think, well, I'm just going to have to do it because it's not going to get done, right? And so that isn't necessarily somebody else's fault, right? Like if we feel the need to step in and do all the things, and to me, I think that also says something about us as humans, that we would rather get to that point. But I think it's easier sometimes. It's easier to just like stay in the role and do the things and burn yourself out than it is looking at the reality of how incredibly unhappy you are. And I know this wasn't you. I know you didn't just like wake up one day and be like, bye. Like, I know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can see a scenario where someone is so disconnected from themselves and feeling so oppressed by that they feel like the only way to change things is to just, and I'm done, and I'm out, right? Which is super sad because basically what that's saying is that's the only way you know how to be. Like, this is not a symbiotic thing. This is a parasitic thing where you're literally sacrificing yourself at the altar of whatever you need to do. And not even not letting the other person do anything, but thinking, you're the best one to do it. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but my heart breaks for a situation where that's the alternative, right? Like there's no.
Okay, I don't
there's no
understand what you're
in-between.
saying. I got lost.
I'm kind of lost it now. I mean, I guess what I'm thinking about is I am sure there are women out there, like you said, that one minute are making the meatloaf and the next minute are gone, and people don't have a clue. And I'm thinking about what it would take to be living in that situation where you literally felt like you could not say out loud, I am unhappy. I need this. I want to talk about that. You're so unhappy and so scared that's either that or you're out. You're literally physically out. That makes me super sad.
Yeah. And I mean, that was me probably, I don't know, 20 years ago.
Yep.
But over time, and thanks to perimenopause and thanks to my 40s, I got better, at saying what I needed. And that's, when I started trying to do all these things and say all these things. And, to his credit, because I was growing over time, I became a different woman. And so he's like, who are you? What are you talking about? You're not happy. You have this beautiful house.
Yeah.
You have these great kids and we go on vacations, every year, whatever.
Yeah. all the things that should add up. And then
All the things.
Karen and I were having an interesting conversation before we hit record about, okay, how does the gray divorce thing come into this, right? So if you don't know what that is, it's this idea that people over 50 are leaving their marriages, and that demographic has doubled over the last few decades, and talking about whether this is the same thing or not. And some of it is, but that also includes men as well. So this specific phenomena that we're talking about is women, and we're not talking about over 50. We're talking about just all age groups with that particular stat. But I do think that there's something to be said for, like, our generation, like, we're done just accepting menopause as like a death sentence. We're done just accepting anything because someone says we have to. Like, I was out to lunch with my godmother a couple weeks ago, and I can't even remember how the topic came up. We were talking about menopause, and she goes, it wasn't like I had an issue with it. She goes, but my mother didn't say anything to me. Like,
yeah,
it just wasn't talked about. She said, I didn't even know I had any other options other than to just suffer silently. So I really do think that our generation is the first one that is like, no, that's not acceptable. From menopause to a marriage that isn't doing it. And I think that the lid has kind of been blown off this societal kind of pressure cooker of, well, it doesn't matter if you think it's acceptable. You have to stay. And suddenly we're all like, yeah, but do I? Do I?
Yeah,
really?
No. And I think, the gray divorce, that's I don't even know if it's a boomer thing, but it's certainly a Gen X thing.
Yep.
Like, a gray divorce wasn't a thing 15 years ago,
Mhm.
And I think it's because, well, first of all, women are becoming more financially independent.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. 100%.
Yeah, huge. There's something, this is kind of tied in, kind of not, but there was this study that I ran across when I was looking for, stuff about this topic. And it was a 12-year study that was funded by the National Institute of Health at Penn State. And they followed over 1,000 people over a 12-year span. And they weren't even looking at divorce. Like, that wasn't even one of their markers. They were tracking happiness, self-esteem, overall health, life satisfaction, and then psychological distress. But what they found, that on all 5 of those markers, people who divorced did better than people who stayed unhappily married.
Mhm.
So I think it's, are we surprised? No. But that just shows that women are staying unhappily married because that's what we think we're supposed to. What kind of a woman, is, you took vows, and what kind of a woman are you? And, it's the noble thing to do. And if you get divorced, it's a failure. It's the easy way out, which I fucking call bullshit.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So I just think it's just interesting. They weren't even tracking anything to do with divorce, but they realized, that here women are staying in these unhappy marriages, and there's zero benefit. Zero.
Yeah. The benefit is, and there's oodles of studies that show that marriage overall benefits men more than it benefits women. And again, we're not anti-marriage on this podcast. That's not what we're saying at all, right?
And we're not pro-divorce, by the way, either.
No, exactly. Like, didn't you have a client tell you once, like, oh, I don't know if I want to work with you because then you'll make me get a divorce? Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
That's a fear. Women are afraid I'm going to make them, like, blow up their lives, which is not true unless you want to blow up your life. We will not be blowing up your life unless that's what you want. So, we're not pro-marriage necessarily, we're not anti-marriage or pro-divorce.
Yeah.
We're pro-women having a choice and living lives that are fulfilling and expansive and feel fucking good.
And I think
Sorry, I've dropped a lot of F-bombs today. I'll wrap it up.
It's all good. It's all good. I do think there's something to be said about having the emotional vocabulary and kind of wherewithal to recognize that this is a thing and it's okay. I don't think the choices, there's just so many things, right? The societal choices, the financial choices, like it wasn't an option back in the day because literally it wasn't an option. Like, it wasn't just kind of like we've talked about this noble thing of, like, we said vows and that means forever. Well, you said vows that you would treat the person well, right? Like, let's talk about vow breaking and what that what that looks like, right? The for better or for worse part doesn't mean one-sided. When you say for better or worse, it doesn't mean you can treat me like shit and I'll still stick around. I would argue that that's not what those mean at all.
Well, and I think also the stigma, the shame piece, which is still around. Like, it's still around. People still judge you for getting a divorce, but it's not like it was in the 50s where it's like, absolutely not. You just do not do that.
Yeah. But men were leaving women for their secretaries, and that was like, oh, that rapscallion.
Right.
He's a bad one, that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about my grandmother when my grandfather died. You know, she didn't know how to drive a car. She didn't know how to balance a checkbook, any of it. And I remember when we had Bernadette Catalano on here, she talked a lot about that situation with her family. She had this, Catholic large family, and when her dad left for the secretary, her mom could like barely get up off the couch. I mean, go back and listen to that episode. It's a really good episode. It talks about a lot of really interesting themes, but she talks about how just that ended her mom. Just, she was never the same afterwards. It's very different now.
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my midlife reclamation guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers. And I think too, we look at marriage maybe through a different lens. It's like I could just hear, not my mom per se, but maybe a generation before her, like, who the hell cares if you're happy? Or who the hell cares if you don't feel seen?
Like, what do you mean happy?
Or who the hell cares, that he doesn't want to connect with you on a deep emotional level?
Yeah.
Who cares that he doesn't want to support your dreams?
Yeah. You feel seen? Like, what? What?
Right. Yeah.
Like, so I can see you.
I think we have more permission as women to ask those questions.
Yeah.
That our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers certainly never had the ability to even ask.
Mm-hmm. And I think we want more. That's the bottom line. I think that, it used to be just like, I mean, I think somebody could be said in the old days, it was just somebody could pay the bills, right? Like, that was what marriage was a financial arrangement back in the day.
Yeah.
And then it became something different. But I do think it went through this period of like, oh, happiness is the 2.5 kids in the picket fence, and like your husband goes off to work and you clean the house, right? So in another way, the economics of the world kind of pushed it in a different framework, because it's one thing for a woman to want to work. It's another thing to get to the point where it's the way for most people now, where it takes two incomes to keep a family's head afloat. Like, that's the norm these days. It's a different paradigm shift than I want to work.
And that also correlated with the whole theme of the 80s. Women, you can have it all.
Like,
right?
no.
You can have it all. You can have the white picket fence, and you can have the job, and you can be the mom, and you can do all the things. And but nobody stopped to ask, well, at what expense?
Yeah.
So it's no wonder women are married for decades, and after doing all the things, trying to have it all with no support in having it all.
Yeah.
And they get to this point and they're just like, F this, man.
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore.
And they're exhausted. Like, I mean, this is a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I do think we talked about this. I can't remember the title of the episode, but we talked about this idea of basically like the Pinterest parent, and just how overly involved parents have become in their children's lives, like micromanaging every little thing. And the pressure of that, the pressure of always having to create the magical childhood and always be the T-ball coach and this and that and the other, and just that's the expectation, I mean, I remember growing up, I wasn't that I was embarrassed, but it always bothered me that, like, my mom was a brownie leader, but that was about it. Not that that was, like, the only thing she did, but there was definitely, I think because we lived in a wealthy area, this kind of, like, distinction between, like, "Oh, all these moms aren't working, and they do the this and the that and this, and my mom has to work." And that's different, right? So I definitely noticed that paradigm growing up is, okay, that's something a little different, you know? I do think the 80s, because that was about the time I was growing up, was a time of y it's not so much you can have it all as it is you're going to do it all. There's a
Well,
difference
yeah.
between having it all and doing it
Yeah.
all, and I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what ended up happening, you know?
Yeah. That's the trap we got into. You can
Yep.
have it all, but by the way, yes, you have to do it all, and you will
Mhm.
barely get any
Yep.
support in doing it all
Yep.
and having it all. I also wanna talk about a piece that I know it impacted my marriage and my divorce, and I think it probably is a factor in the whole walkaway wives phenomenon, but, it's this idea that and it kinda has to do with what you were talking about with, like, the whole Pinterest aesthetic, right? And nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors, but it's like you you put on this not a show, but, you almost, like, put on this act,
Yep.
to try to make it seem like everything is okay, right? Especially if you have kids, and especially if there's no, like, big there's not, like, alcoholism, there's not, like, raging toxic fights, there's
Yep.
not, like, this big catastrophe or something, right? And then you start telling yourself and this is part of the gaslighting, it's like, "Well, he's a good guy.
Yep.
Other people have it way worse than I do. He's not abusive. I'm expecting too much." Right? And so you never can convince yourself in your own mind that it's bad enough
Yeah.
to want more for yourself, right? Meanwhile, you're literally shriveling up inside because you don't feel alive in your marriage.
Yeah.
And again, that's probably something my grandmother would laugh at. Although I have to say, her husband died when she was relatively young. I was 2. She never got remarried. She traveled with her girlfriend. She played poker. She had
And
a
I think
boyfriend who would dip in and dip out, but
yeah.
he was like, "Meh."
And I think that's what happened to a lot of women is once the husband passed early or the divorce or whatever, they're like, "Sweet, I'm not down for all this," you know? Not all of them, but I do think that that was a phenomenon too of them just being like, "Well, freedom, this is great," you know?
Yeah. It's funny because that's me. I don't we'll probably never get married again. I mean, Tony and I live together. We, share a household together. We share lives, kids, grandkids, but it's like a mental thing for me. It's like I love having a partner. I love having someone to share stuff with, but do I want to go down that road again? No, I really don't. And it's almost like my little, flag in the sand I'm I'm putting up.
Yeah.
It's like yeah. I there's no reason at this point for me to get married.
Is he okay with that?
No, he hates that. And,
Sure.
God bless him. He's so and we'll talk about people because of course we'll be out with and especially like his cousin and her husband live close to us now. And so we go out with them almost probably once a week at least. And they'll always bring it up. "Well, when are you guys getting married?"
Oh my god,
And
that's annoying.
I feel so bad for him. And he's very, and I have to just say, "Yeah, I don't know." Mm. But I know
That's
it makes him very sad. I know. And that's hard for me because I don't want to make him sad, but also
yeah,
I'm not sacrificing my own happiness ever again for any man or anybody.
yeah. Well, and I remember you said something at some point where you were like, "I think in my mind this keeps us accountable,"
Yeah.
right?
I mean, because really, honestly, like, what does a marriage certificate do? It doesn't keep anybody married.
Yep.
He and I are both divorced.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean just because you're married, you're gonna stay together forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I tell him we're, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Yep.
You know?
That's lasted longer than most marriages, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, and again, like I keep talking about my situation, but yeah, in my mind, like if I'm married, there's a reason I'm married. Like it's just it's different, you know?
Well, and I will say, there's so many different nuances to this, but I feel like being in a partnered relationship, whether I don't doesn't matter what your sexual identity is or anything, raising kids with two people is way easier.
Yeah,
Being in a
yeah,
relationship with somebody, raising kids is
yeah,
is easier. I mean, I was never a single parent, but my family members I've seen it, and it's not pretty, not easy.
yeah. It's rough.
So, yeah.
Even when
So
you
I get that.
choose it, I think. Obviously
Yes.
there's women and to some extent men that choose to be single parents for whatever reason, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I wanna touch on one piece because this part was really a hurdle for me, and if there's any women that are listening to this episode and are anywhere, like if what we're saying is resonating with you, for me, it was really hard to be the bad guy. Like, I spent
Yeah.
a lot of time trying to explain to people my side or get them to understand kind of where I was coming from and where this was and, what this meant and all of it. And you have to get to the point where you're okay being the villain.
Yep.
You just have to because there will always be people that will misunderstand you. There will always be people that don't give a shit what your side
Yep.
is.
Yep.
And so once you can get over that hump of being okay with being the villain in the story,
Yep.
that opens up like what was that show? Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. That like opens up the wardrobe to Narnia.
Narnia.
Yes, exactly. Like just that level of freedom is like I have no words for it. But that is a huge piece. If this is something that women are considering,
Well, and
not
I
easy
also
though.
think, look, no one knows what goes on behind closed doors in a marriage. Period.
Yeah,
End of
yeah,
story. Like I have friends where I was like, "Oh, wow." It's like you have no idea what I was dealing with. That I was like even shocked, right? Close friends. So, I've come to learn that yeah, it's the way things look to the outside world is not always what they are on the inside. I mean, I remember one of my really, really dear friends, her husband suicided. And, obviously I was in touch with her and was like, oh my gosh, how could this happen? And he had health problems, this, that, and the other. And she, I mean, I'd known her for years and years and years and years and years. And she was like, yeah, there was some stuff going on that was not okay, that was abusive. And I had absolutely no clue. And of course, you feel awful afterwards. But I think that people are very invested in what they view is your identity as a couple. And I think family members a lot of time, and what that is. And I think for them, it challenges their view of what marriage is, right? And if they
yeah,
don't make someone the villain, then they have to look at what their feelings are about the situation and what they're willing to put up with and what they're not willing to put up with. And it's a lot easier to blame someone than realize that this is a very nuanced, not at all clear thing.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think when my ex-husband and I separated, it like sent shockwaves through our friend group and through our little community because again, it was like from the outside looking in, everybody thought, "Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
they have it all. They have everything.
Yeah.
Everything looks fine."
Yeah.
But I joke with some of my girlfriends and they said this, I didn't. One of my girlfriends said, "Yeah, made her husband really like kind of wake up and be like, "Holy shit. If it can happen to them, I better get my shit together and take care of my wife." Like make sure that her needs are taken care of, you know?
Yeah.
So, you're welcome to the women of Seal Beach.
Thank you, Seal Beach, and I'm out.
Okay, quick pause. Have we talked about the Pod Squad lately?
Oh, the Pod Squad. You mean our email list /VIP lounge /digital wine club?
Exactly. So, listeners, if you're not on it yet, you're basically making life harder for yourself when it comes to podcasts.
Like trying to scroll for show notes while speed walking on a treadmill. Wait, what was that link again? Oh, no. Grab the side rails.
Or pulling up that book we mentioned while you're in the Starbucks line and then realizing everybody else moved up 3 cars and now you're that woman.
We've all been there. That's why we made the Pod Squad. You'll get new episode alerts every week with direct links. Easy to listen, easy to share.
And show notes straight to your inbox. So when we drop a life-changing product, book, hot tip, or yummy new drink, you're not rummaging through your memory like a woman searching for her reading glasses when they're on top of her head.
It's organized, it's helpful, it's for you, babes.
So join the Pod Squad. The link is in the show notes. Just tap it.
Snacks, sarcasm, solidarity.
And obviously, fighting the patriarchy.
We write at dawn. Like I said, in my own situation, it was very similar. Like, he figured out real quick that I was serious and then I was done.
Yeah.
And there were some things that, and I wasn't like, I will take you back if blah, 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 blah. You know, he had to walk through a lot of this stuff on his own. I mean, he was living in a camper on my dad's property. I mean, it was pretty bad. But, you know, I knew that he had to walk through that. And I mean, sure, we started talking and going to counseling and talking about what that would look like. But he had to want to make some changes and do some things because there was no way I was going to continue on the way that we were continuing.
And I think that level of self-awareness for men, or not even self-awareness, but willingness to dive in, like that willingness to be like, oh, this really scares me. I don't know what I'm going to find out, but I'm willing to do this. You know, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there were people that I learned later were like, I cannot believe you kicked him out. Like, I was shocked when you did that. I couldn't believe it. And then other people that were like pissed when I took him back, which I was like, hold up. You have, again, you have no idea what's going on in my marriage. And I think it is a much, much different thing to separate because of these things. Have someone do the work that he did, getting sober, all the things that he did, and then be like, yeah, no, you did all this stuff, but I'm just going to throw everything away. Kids, marriage, all that. That is a completely different scenario because we were both on the same page in terms of what needed to change. I mean, his alcoholism was destroying us, among other things. And yeah, so that was a whole other thing when we got back together again and people. So anyways, that is not this episode.
Well, I think it's a piece of it, you know, because that's what we do here at Drinks with the Girls. We just have conversations about the things that matter. And we don't really know where the wind's going to blow us. But I know that there are women out there who are listening who can relate with what you're saying, maybe relate with what I'm saying, maybe relate with, you know, the article we'll link it in the show notes on Walkaway Wives. But I have to say also, I just feel like I'm just putting it all out here. I don't know when we're going to be talking about divorce again, so it's all coming your way, listeners.
Buckle up.
But the guilt piece, like if you can get through the guilt piece and like I said earlier, being okay being the villain, then you will be able to come out of this situation feeling a little more whole. But by the way, getting to those places where you're okay being the villain and where you are okay with the guilt, I had a shit ton of therapy. Like you can't just mindset your way out of that, or at least I couldn't.
Yeah.
And by the way, if anybody is unhappy in their marriage or any relationship and considering a divorce or any kind of rupture in a relationship, I highly recommend therapy.
Yeah.
Or coaching, with yours truly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that the guilt is a reason that women stay longer than they normally would, especially if there's children involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I didn't have my kids, it would have been different.
Okay, so takeaways. What do you want women to take away from this episode, my friend?
Oh my gosh, so many things. It makes me emotional thinking of women in that place where I was. And it makes me emotional thinking of me in that place because, man, that was a hard place.
It was so lonely, too. I mean, like, I know you have good girlfriends and I know you had therapy and all that, but I mean, in the brief time I walked and swam in those waters, I've never felt so alone in my life.
Correct. And I had to seek out women who had gone down the path I was choosing. They were not in my circles. So, that was hard, but very valuable. But yeah, very lonely, very, nobody, my mom wasn't around. So it's not like she was there to bounce ideas off of or get support from. I just want women to know that whether you stay in your marriage or whether you go is 100% okay. Either way.
Yep.
The main piece of it is that you create a life and a relationship that makes you feel good, that makes you feel seen, that makes you feel alive. Those are my values. Yours may be different in your relationships, but you get to ask for what you want. And like Lisa, like she asked for what she want and her husband was like, "Okay, let me get to this and I'll get back to you." So I think it's okay to ask for what you want, and there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you if you are considering leaving a marriage where you are unhappy and unfulfilled.
Yeah.
What about you? What are some takeaways you want?
When you were talking about me asking for what I wanted, because I don't know that actually happened. I think that I just was done with the alcoholism and what the mental illness was doing to me. That's what I was done with. And so for me, it wasn't even like asking for what I wanted. It was more like, this is unacceptable. I'm not going to be in this situation anymore. I'm not going to put my kids in this situation before. If this is how it's going to be, we are done. And it really didn't ever enter the conversation where it was like, if you don't quit drinking, if you don't get your mental health together, we're not getting back together. It was not a conversation. It was just like, and we're done. So I think that it actually, I mean, if he were here, he would probably say it was even more terrifying because I wasn't like, this is the way.
So he had to figure it out.
He had to figure it out. Exactly. And because I was done figuring things out for him. I was over it. Like, you know what you need to do and you're not doing it. And I am a mother first and I am not going to raise these children in this kind of environment anymore. And then, after he started working on things, sure, it was a conversation of like, okay, what is this going to look like? And do we start spending time together as a family? And what does that mean? Like, then it was more of a conversation, but yeah, I didn't even give him that option. I was just like, I'm out. I'm done. So, I mean, I think the bottom line is whatever you are thinking of doing, it is okay. Because at the end of the day, you have those choices. And frankly, I think that, yes, divorce is hard on kids, 1000%. But I also feel like kids deserve a mom that is happy and fulfilled and not miserable and crying and just in hell, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on children and divorce, but at the end of the day, I think that your kids want you to be happy as well.
I think so. Yeah. And it doesn't, my kids were young adults and it still was brutal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's not, I don't think anybody gets away unscathed, but I think what I would, again, I have never been divorced. So I feel like my contribution to this conversation is a little limited, but I don't think anybody wants to be in this situation, but just because nobody wants to be in this situation doesn't mean it might be the option that needs to happen. Is I think what I'm saying. I think that a partnership is two people who have a common goal. And if that goal isn't common anymore, then that's information that you're going to need to process. The institution of a partnership or a marriage in and of itself, to me, existing just to be an institution is ridiculous. Like that's back in the day. That's how women had to exist because there was no choice. You weren't a person, literally, unless you were married, right? You couldn't open a credit card, all these things we've talked about. That was the option. And also, if you weren't married, there was a whole host of other issues that would come up because of that. So you really had to be married to have some kind of a function in society, really.
And also when we got married, I feel like that was still kind of not the financial pieces per se, but just the idea that that's just what you do.
Yeah.
After you graduate college, you find a man and get married.
Mhm.
And then you have babies.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
we've talked about that. We've talked about the
Yeah.
fact that when I saw the pictures from your wedding, I was like, well, I'm a giant fuck up, right? And you going, I hate the fact that you thought that, but it was the same thing, right? Because I looked
Yeah.
at the pictures, I had no idea what was going on internally, right?
Yeah.
I looked at the pictures and was like, wow, I'm a big fat loser. And it's just, again, the subtleties are not there on the outside. That was what the expectation was. You would check
Yeah.
the boxes. I hadn't. But I
Yeah.
see our daughters making different choices already. I hear my daughter saying, I don't know if I want to have kids. I don't know if I want to be married. And she's young. She's 16, right? I hear you talk about Peyton making different choices. But what I like about that is they're truly making their own way. They're not going out there and trying to squeeze themselves into like basically the size 2 genes of relationships. You know what I mean? Like they're not out there going like, I need to shapeshift because that's what I felt like, right? And so
Yeah.
did you. I
Yeah.
need to shapeshift to turn myself into something to be palatable for this. Neither of them are doing that. They're going out there and like, what's in this for me? Right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, Peyton will say she's 20. She just turned 28 last week. And she'll say, she's like, I might not get married till I'm 35. And I'm like, and?
That's
Okay.
when I got married.
Like,
I was even
right.
older, actually. I think I was 36 or 37 when I got married.
And it's like, okay, if that's how it goes, it's better than being married to the wrong person earlier. You know, if that's what it takes to, you know, be in a relationship that's going to fulfill you, then it's worth the wait. But I love seeing her she's dating all over the place. And that I never did that. I usually would have a boyfriend for a time and then whatever. I never like dated multiple people, and she's just having the time of her life. And I'm here for it. It makes me so happy.
For her.
But okay, let's land this plane. As always, Lisa and our whole goal for each episode that we bring you is that you feel like you're not alone, that you feel seen, that you maybe think, wow, I feel like I'm sitting at the table drinking coffee with them. That's our goal. And if this conversation has stirred up something like that for you, if you're questioning your marriage, if you haven't even said anything out loud yet, but you're kind of afraid to go there, you know, or even if you're just wondering what your next chapter will look like, if you're trying to reconnect with yourself after decades of putting everybody else first, this is exactly the work that I do with women. So you can book a free reclamation call. I'll put a link in the show notes. We'll just get on a phone call and we'll just chit chat like girlfriends, talk about what's going on, what you need, where you're at, and where you want to be, and we'll bridge that gap. So there's my little shameless plug. But also, if you know a midlife sister who's struggling with anything that we're talking about today, who could relate with this, send this to her. She would appreciate it, and so would we.
Yep. Leave us a review. If you like this episode, great. If you didn't like it, great. We always love when listeners suggest topics because otherwise it's us sitting there going, okay, what can we come up with? Or this article's cool. And we don't mind doing that. We really don't. But we also want the community to be a part of it as well. What else? Oh, stay tuned for Drinks with the Girls 2.0, which is coming soon to I'll just drop it, Patreon near you. Subscribe to the Pod Squad, like, share, do all the things. And yeah, I think we're good. I think we can land the plane.
Let's land that sucker. Cheers.
Cheers.